"I need to find myself," Jack said, placing his suitcase by our door. "With Megan." I froze. Megan. His high school sweetheart. My husband was leaving on a 2-week trip with his ex, while I stayed behind in our emptying marriage. 8 years together, and this was what it had come to. I smiled calmly. "That's nice. I hope you find what you're looking for." The door closed behind him. Little did Jack know, while he searched for himself with her, I would finally discover who I truly was without him. I stood in the doorway long after Jack's car disappeared down our tree-lined street. 8 years of marriage, reduced to a casual goodbye and the lingering scent of his cologne. My name is Frida, and until that moment, I had believed my marriage, while imperfect, was solid. Jack and I met in college. I was 22, ambitious, with dreams of becoming an award-winning architect. He was 24, charming, with plans to launch his own marketing firm. We fell in love over coffee and blueprints, planning our futures together between classes and internships. When we married at 25 and 27, we promised to support each other's dreams equally. That promise faded slowly, like a photograph left in sunlight. 3 years ago, Jack's business opportunity required a move to Seattle. I left my budding architecture career in Chicago, my friends, and my family. "It's just temporary," he had assured me. "Once I'm established, you can start your own firm." But temporary became permanent. I took a job as an office manager at a small construction company, my design skills gathering dust while I answered phones and filed paperwork. Jack worked late, networked constantly, and slowly became a stranger in our home. 6 months ago, I found the first text message from Megan. "Miss you. Can't wait to see you again." When I confronted him, Jack's face had hardened. "She's a potential client. You're being paranoid and controlling. This is why my business struggles, you know. Your neediness takes my focus away." I apologized. I actually apologized. After that, I noticed changes. Our joint savings account balance dwindled. Jack password protected his phone. His weekend business meetings increased. I swallowed my suspicions and focused on being less needy. I lost 20 pounds. Started wearing makeup daily. Kept the house spotless. Nothing changed. The morning Jack announced his trip, I had already made breakfast, his favorite French toast with real maple syrup. He barely touched it, too busy packing his expensive luggage. "I need space to think, to figure out who I am apart from all this." He gestured vaguely around our kitchen. Megan reached out. "We're going to spend 2 weeks at a lake retreat in Montana. She's at a similar crossroads in her life." I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. "This isn't about you," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "I just need to reconnect with who I was before all the responsibilities." After he left, I sat at our dining table, staring at his untouched breakfast. Then I opened my laptop to check our shared email for a bill notification. Instead, I found his hotel reservation confirmation. 1 room. 1 king-sized bed. For 14 nights. My fingers trembled as I checked our online banking. Another $50,000, transferred yesterday to an account I didn't recognize. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. I scrolled through months of emails, finding deleted messages in the trash folder, communications with a real estate agent in Megan's hometown of Portland, inquiries about business licenses in Oregon. My husband wasn't finding himself. He was restarting his life without me. That night, I found myself digging through my keepsake box, finding a letter my grandmother had written me before she died. "Your worth isn't tied to anyone else's perception of you," she had written. "When someone shows you disrespect, believing them is optional." I pressed the letter to my chest and made a decision. If Jack was finding himself with Megan, I would find myself too. But not by his side, and certainly not waiting at home like a forgotten houseplant. The morning after Jack left, I called my best friend Ashley. We had maintained our friendship despite the distance, though our calls had become less frequent as my marriage deteriorated. I was too ashamed to admit how bad things had gotten. He did what? Ashley's voice escalated through the phone. With his ex? And you just let him go? What was I supposed to do? Tackle him at the door? I stared out the window at our perfectly maintained lawn, a yard I took care of while Jack networked. No, but Frida, this is beyond finding himself. This is… God, I don't even know what to call this. Abandonment? Betrayal? The death of my marriage by 1,000 cuts? I laughed bitterly. This isn't funny, Ashley said softly. What are you going to do? I don't know. Wait for him to come back, I guess. Ashley's silence spoke volumes. Finally, she said, What would the old Frida do? The one who stayed up all night perfecting designs, who fought for that scholarship, who never took no for an answer? Her words hit me like cold water. What happened to that woman? After our call, I spent hours investigating our finances. The $50,000 transfer was just the beginning. Over the past 6 months, Jack had moved nearly $200,000 from our accounts. My inheritance from my grandmother, meant for starting my own architecture firm someday, was completely gone. In a hidden folder on our shared computer, I found documents for a beach house purchase in Portland, Oregon, Megan's hometown. The down payment matched the missing inheritance amount exactly. White, hot fury replaced my numbness. I wasn't just being left behind. I was being robbed of my future. That afternoon, I emailed my former architecture professor, Dr. Thomas, asking if he knew of any opportunities. I expected a polite brush off. Instead, I received a phone call within the hour. Frida, I was just thinking about you last week, his familiar voice boomed. Parker and Associates in Denver is desperately seeking someone with your residential specialization background. Their lead designer just left for maternity leave. Denver? I repeated, my mind spinning with possibilities. It would mean relocating, but from what I recall, you always said Chicago was too cold and Seattle was too rainy. Denver might be just right. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. The next day brought another surprise. Sandra, Jack's business partner, asked to meet for coffee. We had never been close, but I respected her business acumen. We met at a small cafe far from Jack's office. Sandra looked nervous, tapping her manicured nails against her coffee cup. Jack doesn't know I'm here, she began. But there's something you should know. The business is in trouble. Serious trouble. I frowned. Jack never mentioned anything. Because he's been telling investors it's your fault. That supporting your expensive lifestyle is draining company resources. That your emotional issues distract him from focusing on work. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. What? Sandra nodded grimly. I found out last week when an investor asked how you were doing with your treatment. I had no idea what he was talking about. I don't have emotional issues. I don't need treatment. I barely spend any money. I know, Sandra said quietly. Jack's been using company funds for personal expenses. Expensive dinners, weekend trips, gifts. I tracked the charges. They align with Megan's social media posts. My world tilted. Jack hadn't just reconnected with his ex recently. This had been going on for months, possibly longer. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's wrong. And because he's trying to force me out of the business now, too. She slid a flash drive across the table. Financial records, text messages, everything I could gather. Protect yourself, Frida. The next morning, I met with Rachel Gordon, a divorce attorney Ashley recommended. Her office was sleek, her demeanor nonsense. From what you're telling me, your husband has been planning this exit for months, Rachel said, after reviewing my documents and Sandra's flash drive. The good news? His paper trail is sloppy. The bad news? You need to move quickly before he hides more assets. What do I do first? Secure what's left in your joint accounts. Document everything. And decide what you want your life to look like after this is over. That night, Jack called as if nothing was wrong. I could hear restaurant noises in the background. Laughter. The clink of glasses. "Just checking if any important mail came," he said casually. "Also, could you water the office plants?" I forgot to ask before I left. "Of course," I replied, matching his casual tone while staring at the private investigator's business card in my hand. "Having a good time finding yourself?" "It's clarifying," he said. "Megan says hi." After hanging up, I called the investigator. 2 days later, I had photos of Jack and Megan entering their hotel room, holding hands at dinner, kissing by a lake. All the evidence I needed. Meanwhile, I secured an apartment in Denver, sight unseen, arranged for a video interview with Parker and Associates, and began sorting through our house, identifying what was truly mine. The interview request came sooner than expected. "We'd like to speak with you tomorrow," the email read. "Our timeline has accelerated." That night, I barely slept, rehearsing answers to potential questions, wondering if I could really start over at 33. But underneath the anxiety lay something unfamiliar. Excitement. The video interview with Parker and Associates was scheduled for 9 in the morning. I set up in our guest room, wearing a professional blouse I hadn't taken out in years. My portfolio, updated frantically over 2 days, displayed on my screen. When the call connected, I nearly dropped my coffee. "Travis?" Travis Miller, a former colleague from my Chicago days, smiled back at me. "Surprise. I'm the senior design director here now." I had no idea. "When Dr. Thomas mentioned your name, I jumped at the chance. I always said you were the most talented designer in our cohort." The interview transformed from nerve, racking to comfortable as Travis and 2 partners asked about my design philosophy, experience, and reasons for the career gap. I was honest. I put my career on hold to support my husband's business. Now I'm reclaiming my professional path. After an hour of discussion and portfolio review, Travis leaned forward. "How soon can you start?" "We have a major client waiting for a lead designer on a luxury penthouse project." "How soon do you need me?" "Yesterday," he laughed. "I can be in Denver next week." After the call ended, I sat stunned. Then I began to move with purpose. I withdrew the remaining $56,000 from our joint accounts, leaving exactly $1,000 behind. I contacted the utility companies, removed myself from our accounts, and called a moving company. All weekend, I packed methodically. Clothes, personal items, the few pieces of furniture that were mine before marriage. Photos I removed from frames, leaving the empty frames behind. Books, my grandmother's china, my drafting supplies, everything fit in one small moving truck. Sunday night, I walked through our house one last time. The living room where we'd hosted dinner parties, the kitchen where we'd cooked Sunday breakfasts, the bedroom where we'd once shared dreams. Now it all felt like a movie set for a play that had ended. On the dining table, I left a letter. "Jack, I've gone to find myself too. I've taken what's mine, nothing more. Please don't try to contact me until you're ready to discuss divorce arrangements through our attorneys." Rachel Gordon's card is attached. At 4 in the morning, I locked the door behind me, dropped my key through the mail slot, and drove away from Seattle with the sunrise at my back. The 30-hour drive to Denver gave me time to think. With each state line I crossed, I felt lighter. By the time the Rocky Mountains appeared on the horizon, I was ready for whatever came next. My new apartment was small but modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver. The complex had a gym, a co-working space, and a rooftop garden. It cost less than our mortgage in Seattle but offered twice the amenities. Tuesday morning, I arrived at Parker and Associates for my first day. The office occupied 3 floors of a glass tower, with design studios, meeting rooms, and a materials library that made my heart race. Travis greeted me with a tour and coffee. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified, but in a good way." "You've got this." The team is excited to meet you. By noon, I'd been introduced to 30 colleagues, assigned an office with a mountain view, and given the penthouse project files. The client, Blake Winston, was a tech entrepreneur who wanted his new home to be innovative but comfortable. At lunch, I sat with two female designers, Zoe and Lucia, who insisted I join them. "Travis says you're brilliant," Zoe said, unwrapping her sandwich. "We need more women in leadership here." "I wouldn't say leadership," I demurred. "Lead designer on the Winston project?" "That's definitely leadership," Lucia countered. "Blake's penthouse is the most prestigious residential project we have." That evening, returning to my apartment, I checked my phone for the first time since morning. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages, all from Jack. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? What do you mean you're gone? You can't just leave. This is completely irrational. I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to talk. You took how much from our accounts? Answer your phone right now." The last message made my blood run cold. "Your sister told me you're in Denver. I'm coming to get you." I had spoken to my sister Madison briefly, telling her I was safe, but not explaining everything. Jack must have manipulated her into revealing my location. I barely slept that night, jumping at every sound. The next morning, Travis noticed my exhaustion. "Everything okay with the move?" he asked. "Just adjusting," I lied. But midway through a materials selection meeting, my phone exploded with notifications. Jack had arrived in Denver and was demanding my address from Madison. When she refused, he threatened legal action for aiding in theft. I excused myself from the meeting, hands shaking. In the hallway, I bumped into someone, spilling coffee on an expensive-looking suit. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, mortified. The man, tall with silver, streaked dark hair, merely smiled. "No harm done. Are you all right, though? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "You're the new designer, right? Frida?" "I'm Blake Winston." He extended his hand. "You're designing my home." Of all the moments to meet my important client. "Mr. Winston, I apologize for this first impression." "Blake, please." "And first impressions are overrated." He studied me. "Seriously, you seem distressed. Anything I can help with?" Something in his kind eyes broke my composure. "My soon-to-be ex-husband is in town looking for me, and I'm not ready to face him." Blake didn't miss a beat. "Use my driver. He's downstairs. Tell him to take you wherever you need to go. I'll let Travis know you had an emergency." I couldn't possibly. Consider it professional courtesy. I want my designer focused on my penthouse, not looking over her shoulder. That simple act of kindness from a stranger gave me the courage to return to my apartment, pack an overnight bag, and check into a hotel under a different name. From there, I called Rachel. "He can't force you to go back," she assured me. "But document any harassment. We'll need it for the restraining order if necessary." By evening, word had spread that Jack was at the Parker and Associates reception, demanding to see me. Security escorted him out when he became belligerent. The incident made a small splash on a local design blog, which described a domestic dispute spilling into one of Denver's premier architecture firms. The next day, Blake requested a meeting about his penthouse. I arrived prepared to apologize for the disruption and potentially lose the project. Instead, he surprised me. I saw the preliminary sketches Travis shared. "Your vision for the space is exactly what I wanted. Even after yesterday's drama?" "Especially after yesterday. Anyone who can maintain that level of work while dealing with personal chaos has my respect." He smiled. "Plus, the blog post mentioned you're an architect who escaped Seattle to remake her life. I like supporting people who are rewriting their stories." For the first time in years, I felt my professional confidence returning. Someone valued my work, not despite my personal struggles, but recognizing my strength through them. That afternoon, an email arrived from Architecture West magazine, requesting an interview about being a fresh voice in Denver's design scene. Apparently, the blog post had caught an editor's attention. As I stared at the email in disbelief, another text from Jack arrived. "This isn't over. I'll get back what's mine." But for the first time, his threats felt hollow. In just 1 week, I had found a new home, a new job, new friends, and a path back to myself. Jack could rage all he wanted. I was no longer listening. 2 weeks flew by in a whirlwind of design meetings, material selections, and site visits. My concept for Blake's penthouse centered around bringing nature into the urban space, with living walls, water features, and panoramic mountain views maximized through strategic window placements. The design team embraced my ideas, and Travis gave me increasing creative control. Friday morning, my first salary deposit appeared in my new bank account. Seeing that number, completely my own, no joint account, no shared expenses, brought tears to my eyes. Financial independence had never felt so meaningful. "We're celebrating tonight," Lucia declared when I told her. "First paycheck deserves margaritas." That evening at a rooftop bar with Zoe and Lucia, I finally relaxed. The Denver skyline glittered around us, the mountains a dark silhouette against the sunset. "To new beginnings," Zoe toasted, raising her glass. "And to leaving behind what no longer serves us," Lucia added, eyeing my wedding ring, which I still wore out of habit. I twisted it off and dropped it into my purse. To freedom. The next morning, an envelope arrived at my apartment. Photos from the private investigator documented Jack and Megan's finding yourself trip in excruciating detail. Them checking into the hotel, hands intertwined, sharing intimate dinners, kissing beside a lake, meeting with a real estate agent in Portland, the same agent from the emails I'd found. While these images should have devastated me, they instead solidified my resolve. This wasn't a spontaneous trip to find himself. This was the culmination of a long, planned exit strategy, one that included taking my money to start a new life with his ex. Monday morning, Travis invited me to present my penthouse design directly to Blake. The conference room fell silent as I unveiled the 3D renderings, material samples, and flow diagrams. "The space needs to breathe," I explained, moving through the presentation with growing confidence. Each room transitions naturally to the next, with sightlines that guide the eye toward either the mountains or the city skyline, depending on the time of day and intended use. Blake leaned forward, engaged. "You've created exactly what I described but couldn't articulate. It feels both expansive and intimate." After the meeting, Blake asked about my background. I gave him the condensed version, leaving out the uglier details of Jack's betrayal. "Seattle's loss is Denver's gain," he said simply. "I look forward to seeing this design become reality." That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was my sister Madison. "I'm so sorry." Jack came by, saying he was worried sick about you. "I thought I was helping by telling him you were safe in Denver. I had no idea what was really happening." Before I could respond, another text arrived from Madison. "He's flying to Denver tomorrow. Says he's not leaving without you." My stomach dropped. I called Rachel immediately. "He can't force you to go anywhere," she reassured me. "But save these messages. We might need them for a restraining order." The next day passed in anxious anticipation. Every time the office door opened, I flinched, expecting Jack. By evening, I was exhausted from the constant vigilance. As I packed up to leave, Travis stopped by my office. Security called. "There's someone in the lobby asking for you. Says he's your husband." My hands froze over my bag. I can't see him. "I already told them not to send him up. Do you want me to call the police?" I shook my head. "No, but is there another way out?" Travis led me to a service elevator that opened to the parking garage. "Take my car," he said, handing me his keys. "I'll get a ride with Lucia." I thanked him, marveling at the kindness of these people who barely knew me yet were helping protect me from my own husband. The following morning, the Denver Design Journal's website featured a photo of Jack being escorted from the Parker and Associates building. The caption read, "Drama at Denver's premier architecture firm. Estranged husband of new design star Frida Harrison, removed by security." The article briefly mentioned my meteoric rise at Parker & Associates and the high-profile Winston Penthouse project, complete with a quote from Blake praising my innovative vision and exceptional talent. While the public attention was mortifying, the professional recognition felt validating. Colleagues stopped by my office all day, expressing support and sharing their own stories of personal and professional rebounds. By week's end, I had 3 new client inquiries citing the article, a request to speak at a local design school, and an unexpected visit from Blake Winston. "I thought you might need this," he said, placing a small white card on my desk. "My personal security firm. In case your ex-husband becomes more persistent." "That's extremely generous, but unnecessary." Blake shook his head. "Consider it selfish. I need my designer focused on creating my dream home, not looking over her shoulder." He hesitated. "And maybe, when things settle down, you'd consider having dinner with me? Not as client and designer, just as people." The invitation caught me off guard. Blake was attractive, successful, and kind, but dating seemed impossible while still legally married and emotionally raw. "I'm not ready," I admitted, "but I'm flattered." "The invitation stands. Whenever you're ready. No pressure, no expectations." That night, Jack finally found my apartment building. The doorman called up, saying a man claiming to be my husband was demanding entry. I declined the visit and asked security to escort him away. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts. "You're making a scene for nothing. This is embarrassing for both of us. I just want to talk. You're being completely irrational. Is this about the money? We can work something out. Is there someone else? That client they mentioned in the article?" The last text sent a chill down my spine. "I'm not leaving Denver without you, Frida. One way or another, you're coming home." I called the security number Blake had given me, then Rachel. By morning, I had filed for an emergency restraining order and hired private security for my apartment building. Later that week, a letter arrived from Rachel. Jack had filed a police report claiming I had stolen from him by emptying our joint accounts. Rachel had countered with evidence of Jack's own financial infidelity, but the situation had escalated to a legal battle. The stress might have overwhelmed me, if not for the concurrent rise in my professional life. The Architecture West interview resulted in a 4-page feature. The design school talk led to an adjunct teaching offer, and the Winston Penthouse project entered the construction phase, with contractors praising the clarity and innovation of my plans. At a team dinner celebrating the project milestone, Blake sat beside me. "How are you holding up with everything?" he asked quietly. "Honestly, I'm simultaneously having the worst and best month of my life. Sometimes that's how transformation works. The old life doesn't go quietly." His words stayed with me as I returned home to find another notice. My new bank account had been temporarily frozen pending investigation of Jack's claims. With bills due and no immediate access to funds, panic set in. The next day, I swallowed my pride and explained the situation to Travis, asking for an advance on my next paycheck. "No need," he said. "We can expedite the bonus for the Winston project. You've earned it." When I hesitated, Blake, who was passing by, intervened. "Or I could provide a no-interest loan, documented through the firm, as a project advance." Their immediate willingness to help without judgment brought unexpected tears. For years with Jack, I'd been made to feel financially incompetent and emotionally unstable. Here, my word and work were enough. That afternoon, Jack's business partner, Sandra, called. "I need to see you. It's urgent." We met at a quiet cafe near my office. Sandra looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. "Jack's business is failing," she said, without preamble. "He's been mismanaging funds for years, using company money for personal expenses. The Portland property, the trips with Megan, all of it." Why are you telling me this? Because he used your inheritance to start the business in the first place. He forged your signature on the initial investment documents 3 years ago. You're technically a silent partner with a 25% stake. The revelation struck like lightning. Jack hadn't just taken my current funds. He'd been using my money from the beginning. I have the original documents, Sandra continued, sliding a folder across the table. I found them while preparing for our tax audit. Your signature doesn't even look like your handwriting. Armed with this new evidence, Rachel filed formal divorce papers the next day, demanding a complete financial accounting and fair settlement. Jack's response was swift and vicious. His attorney portrayed me as a calculating gold digger who abandoned a struggling husband to pursue a glamorous career and wealthy new boyfriend. The absurdity of this characterization might have been amusing if it weren't so potentially damaging. Jack had always been skilled at twisting narratives to make himself the victim, but this time, I had evidence, witnesses, and most importantly, the truth. The first court appearance for temporary orders regarding finances went surprisingly well. The judge was unimpressed by Jack's claims of abandonment when presented with the private investigator's photos and the financial records showing his systematic draining of our accounts before his finding myself trip. As we left the courtroom, a woman approached me. Slender, blonde, vaguely familiar. My stomach clenched as I recognized her from the photos. "Megan, can we talk?" she asked quietly. "There's something you should know." Megan and I sat in a small cafe across from the courthouse, an awkward silence stretching between us. Up close, she looked different from the photos. Tired, worried. "I left Jack last week," she finally said. "When I found out what he'd been doing to you." I stared at her, speechless. "He told me you two were already separated," she continued. "That you'd agreed to divorce months ago but were keeping it quiet for financial reasons. That you were living separate lives, just sharing a house until everything was finalized. None of that is true. I know that now." She twisted her napkin. "When I saw the news about him being removed from your office building, I started asking questions. He got angry, defensive. Then I found your letter in his suitcase." "My goodbye letter?" She nodded. "That's when I realized he'd been lying to me too. About everything. Including the beach house in Portland?" Megan's eyes widened. "How did you know about that?" "He said it was an investment property for the business, purchased with my inheritance money, without my knowledge." She closed her eyes briefly. "I'm so sorry. I never would have. If I'd known you were still together, that he was stealing from you." Part of me wanted to hate this woman, but looking at her, I recognized another victim of Jack's manipulations. "I've given a statement to your lawyer," Megan said. "About when our relationship really started, what Jack told me about your marriage, everything." "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do. And because he used both of us." She stood to leave. "He's not the man either of us thought he was." After Megan left, I sat processing this unexpected alliance. My phone buzzed with a text from Blake. "Dinner tonight? Just as friends. You look like you could use a friendly ear." I accepted. After the emotional roller coaster of the day, normal human connection sounded perfect. Blake suggested a quiet restaurant in a historic Denver hotel, tucked away from the busy downtown streets. Over roasted salmon and white wine, I found myself sharing the whole story, including the surprise meeting with Megan. "You know what amazes me?" Blake said when I finished. "Your resilience. Most people would crumble under half of what you've been through. I nearly did. For years, I believed Jack's version of reality, that I was needy, incompetent, holding him back. Yet here you are, creating a ward, winning designs, and rebuilding your life." "Award? Winning?" Blake looked surprised. "Travis didn't tell you? Your penthouse design has been shortlisted for the Regional Residential Design Innovation Award. The committee contacted him yesterday." The news was overwhelming. Just 3 months ago, I had been an office manager with fading dreams. Now my work was being recognized by industry professionals. To your remarkable journey, Blake raised his glass. And to whatever comes next. The evening ended with a friendly hug outside the restaurant. No pressure, no expectations, just genuine support. For the first time since Jack's betrayal, I felt the possibility of eventually trusting someone again. That feeling was short-lived. The next morning, I arrived at work to find Travis waiting by my office, face grim. Jack contacted several of our clients last night, including the Morgans and the Westfield Group. What? Why? He told them you were emotionally unstable, that you'd abandoned your husband and stolen money, that any projects you designed would likely be compromised by your mental state. Panic rose in my chest. Did they believe him? No. Both clients called me immediately. They were concerned, but mostly about you. The Morgans specifically said, and I quote, "Anyone whose ex-husband is that vindictive must be doing something right with her life." Relief washed over me, followed by determination. He's trying to destroy my career because he can't control me anymore. Well, he's failing spectacularly. The partners want to make a statement supporting you publicly. Travis hesitated. If you're comfortable with that, what kind of statement? Announcing your promotion to senior design director and your nomination for the Innovation Award, it would make Jack's claims look even more ridiculous. The idea of such public recognition was both terrifying and exhilarating. Do it, I said. The firm's announcement generated more media attention than anyone expected. Denver Business Journal ran a profile piece. A local morning show requested an interview, and the Regional Architectural Association asked me to join a panel on innovative residential design. Meanwhile, the legal battle intensified. Jack's attorney filed motions claiming I had violated financial agreements and owed substantial penalties. Rachel countered with evidence of Jack's forgery and misappropriation of business funds. The stress took its toll. I lost weight, struggled with insomnia, and jumped at unexpected noises. But unlike my time with Jack, I now had a support system. Travis adjusted deadlines when I had court appearances. Zoe and Lucia brought meals when I was too exhausted to cook. Blake's security team kept Jack away from my apartment. 3 months after leaving Seattle, I attended the Denver Architectural Gala as a featured designer. Wearing a midnight blue gown purchased with my own money from my own account, I entered the historic Daniels and Fisher Tower ballroom, feeling like a different person than the woman who had silently packed her husband's suitcase for his finding himself trip. The evening was magical. Industry leaders praised my work. The Winston Penthouse received 3 nominations. Travis introduced me to potential clients who were eager to work with the innovative new voice in Denver design. During the awards presentation, Blake joined me at my table, elegant in a tailored tuxedo. Nervous? He whispered as they announced the residential design nominees. Terrified. But in a good way. When they called my name as the winner, the applause was thunderous. Walking to the stage, I glimpsed my reflection in the ballroom mirrors. Confident, professional, strong. As I began my acceptance speech, movement at the ballroom entrance caught my eye. Jack, in an ill-fitting suit, glaring at me from the doorway. My words faltered momentarily. Then Blake stood, signaling security. 2 men in dark suits approached Jack, speaking quietly but firmly. The confrontation seemed headed for another embarrassing scene. Then something unexpected happened. Megan appeared beside Jack, took his arm, and whispered something that made him pause. She led him away from the ballroom, sparing me the public drama he clearly hoped to create. I finished my speech, thanking my colleagues, mentors, and those who believed in me when I had forgotten how to believe in myself. The standing ovation carried me back to my seat. Later, as guests mingled and celebrated, Blake brought me a glass of champagne. You handled that potential disaster with incredible grace. I had help. I nodded toward the door where Jack had stood. Megan arrived just in time, She contacted me earlier, worried Jack might try something tonight. You've been in touch with Megan? Blake looked sheepish. Only about security concerns. She's been very helpful in predicting Jack's behavior patterns. The idea of Blake and Megan collaborating to protect me was strangely touching. People who had no obligation to me, stepping up while the man who had vowed to cherish me worked tirelessly to tear me down. The next morning, photos from the gala appeared in the Denver Post and several architecture blogs. One captured the moment perfectly. Me on stage, radiant in blue, while Jack lurked in the background, his face twisted with anger as security approached. The caption read, "Rising star architect Frida Harrison accepts Innovation Award while estranged husband attempts disruption." Jack's humiliation became complete when the image went viral among design professionals, generating supportive messages and offers of collaboration from across the country. That afternoon, Jack finally crossed the line that ensured his defeat. He appeared at the Parker & Associates construction site where the Winston penthouse was being built, claiming to be my husband with authorization to review the plans. When denied access, he became belligerent, shoving a project manager who tried to escort him out. The assault charges were the final straw. The judge granted a permanent restraining order, barring Jack from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace. Rachel called with the news. This strengthens our position considerably. His behavior demonstrates a pattern of harassment and instability that undermines all his claims against you. 2 days later, Blake invited me to see the penthouse progress. Standing in the partially finished space, sunlight streaming through the windows I had designed, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "It's even more beautiful than the renderings," Blake said, watching me take in the space. "It feels like it belongs here," I replied, running my hand along a curved wall that framed the mountain view, like it was always meant to be this way. "Some things are like that," Blake said quietly. "They just need the right moment and the right person to reveal what was possible all along." He wasn't just talking about the penthouse. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the air between us changed. Not yet, but someday, when I was truly free. As if hearing my thoughts, Blake smiled. "No pressure, but when you're ready, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real date." "I'd like that. When I'm ready." The next day, Jack's lawyer requested a settlement meeting. After months of fighting, Jack was suddenly eager to negotiate. According to Rachel, his assault charge and the viral photo had damaged his already struggling business beyond repair. Potential investors were pulling out, citing concerns about his judgment and character. "He's running out of money and options," Rachel explained. "Now's the time to press our advantage." 7 months after Jack left to find himself with his ex, I sat across from him at the settlement table, no longer afraid, no longer doubting myself. Whatever he had gone looking for, I had found something far more valuable, myself. The settlement meeting took place in Rachel's office, a neutral territory that still felt like home turf. Jack arrived with his attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Jack himself appeared disheveled. His normally immaculate hair needed a cut, his shirt was wrinkled, and he'd lost weight. 7 months ago, the sight would have triggered my caretaking instinct. Now, I felt nothing but a clinical detachment. "Let's get this over with," Jack's attorney began. "My client is prepared to offer a generous settlement." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "We're listening. 30% of the current business value, to be paid in installments over 5 years. Miss Harrison keeps her personal belongings and vehicles. Mr. Harrison retains the Seattle home and Portland property." The offer was insultingly low, considering Jack had used my inheritance for the business startup and the Portland property down payment. "Counter offer," Rachel said calmly. "Full restoration of Miss Harrison's inheritance, plus 40% of the business value, payable immediately. The Portland property is sold, with proceeds split equally. Mr. Harrison keeps the Seattle home, but pays Miss Harrison half its equity value." Jack slammed his hand on the table. That's outrageous. She abandoned me, stole from our accounts, humiliated me professionally. His attorney placed a restraining hand on his arm. Perhaps we should take a break. No break, Jack snapped. Frida, be reasonable. You know we can't afford these terms. We? I echoed. There is no we, Jack. Not anymore. This vindictive approach isn't like you. He tried a different tack, voice softening. You were always compassionate, understanding. I still am, I replied evenly. I understand exactly what you did. You stole my inheritance, had an affair with your ex, planned to leave me financially destitute, and when I refused to be your victim, you tried to destroy my reputation and career. Jack's face flushed. That's not how it happened. We have evidence for every claim, Rachel interjected, sliding copies of documents across the table. Bank transfers, forged signatures, the private investigator's report, Megan's sworn statement, harassment documentation, the assault charge. Jack's attorney reviewed the papers, his expression growing increasingly grim. He whispered something to Jack, who shook his head vehemently. We need time to discuss this, the attorney finally said. You have 48 hours, Rachel replied. After that, we proceed to trial with all evidence made public. As they prepared to leave, Jack paused beside my chair. I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly. I just needed to find myself. I looked him directly in the eyes. Congratulations, Jack. You found exactly who you are. The next morning, Parker and Associates announced my promotion to partner, the youngest in the firm's history. The press release cited the award, winning Winston Penthouse, and 3 other major projects I had secured. Travis threw an impromptu celebration in the office. The partnership was unanimous, he told me, handing me a glass of champagne. Your designs have brought in more new business in 7 months than most associates manage in 3 years. The celebration felt surreal. Just 8 months earlier, I had been answering phones and filing papers in Seattle, my architectural dreams fading daily. Now I was a partner in one of Denver's premier firms, with my work featured in national publications. When I returned to my apartment that evening, Blake was waiting in the lobby with a bouquet of sunflowers. Congratulations, partner, he grinned. These seemed more your style than roses. He was right. I had always loved sunflowers for their resilience and the way they turn toward light. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched. How did you know about the partnership already? Travis called me. He thought I'd want to be the first to congratulate you. Blake hesitated. I also have news. The penthouse is nearly complete. Would you like a private tour tomorrow? The next day, Blake met me at the construction site. The penthouse was transformed from my drawings into physical reality. Light poured through strategically placed windows, casting geometric patterns across the hardwood floors. The living walls bloomed with carefully selected plants. The kitchen, with its waterfall island and hidden appliances, flowed seamlessly into the dining and living spaces. It's perfect, Blake said, watching me explore the space I had created. Exactly what I imagined, but couldn't articulate. We ended on the wraparound terrace overlooking downtown Denver, the mountains rising majestically in the distance. I have a confession, Blake said, leaning against the railing. I could have chosen any firm in Denver for this project. I selected Parker and Associates because of you, but we'd never met. I wasn't even in Denver when you hired the firm. I saw your student work in an architecture journal years ago, a community center design that incorporated natural elements in revolutionary ways. I tracked your career, waiting for a chance to work with you. When you disappeared from the Seattle scene, I contacted everyone in the industry trying to find you. That's how Travis knew to recruit me, I realized. You told him. Blake nodded. When Dr. Thomas mentioned you were looking to relocate, I asked Travis to bring you on board. The rest was all you. Your talent, your vision. The revelation was overwhelming. While Jack had been systematically undermining my confidence and career, A stranger had been following my work, believing in my potential. "Thank you," I said simply, "for seeing something in me I had forgotten was there." Our moment was interrupted by a call from Rachel. Jack's attorney reached out. "They're accepting our terms, with one condition. Jack wants a face meeting. Just you and him. No lawyers." "Absolutely not," I replied immediately. That was my response. But he's insistent. Says there are things you need to hear directly from him. The only thing I need from Jack is his signature on the settlement papers. I agree. But consider this. Meeting his one condition removes any excuse for him to drag this out further. You'd be completely in control. Set the time, place, duration. After weighing the options, I agreed to a 15-minute meeting in the lobby of my apartment building, with security present and Rachel waiting nearby. Jack arrived exactly at the appointed time, looking marginally more put together than at our last encounter. We sat in a quiet corner of the lobby, the security guard positioned discreetly nearby. "Thank you for meeting me," Jack began formally. 15 minutes, Jack. That's all you get." He nodded. "I deserve that. I deserve worse, actually." He took a deep breath. "I'm not here to justify what I did. I'm here to tell you I know it was wrong. All of it." The admission caught me off guard. In 8 years of marriage, I had never heard Jack admit fault without qualification. "Megan left me," he continued. "Said she couldn't be with someone who would treat his wife the way I treated you. She was right. My business is failing. Also deserved. But the worst part is knowing what I threw away. If you're hoping for forgiveness—" "No," he interrupted. "I don't expect or deserve forgiveness. I just thought you should know that your leaving was the wake-up call I needed. Watching you rebuild your life, succeed beyond anything I ever achieved, made me see how small I'd become. For months, I had imagined this moment, Jack acknowledging his wrongs, admitting I was right to leave. But now that it was happening, it felt hollow. His recognition changed nothing. "Is that all?" I asked, checking my watch. "Almost." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. My grandmother's engagement ring, which I had left behind in Seattle. "This belongs to you. Family heirlooms shouldn't be part of divorce settlements." The gesture, unexpected and genuine, touched something deep within me. Not love, not forgiveness, but recognition that the man before me was finally seeing himself clearly. I took the box. "Thank you. I am sorry, Frida. Not because I got caught, or because things didn't work out with Megan, or because my business is failing, but because I hurt someone who loved me truly. I'll regret that for the rest of my life." As he stood to leave, Jack paused. "I heard about your partnership and the award. Congratulations. You deserve all of it." After he left, I remained in the lobby, turning the velvet box in my hands. The ring inside represented not just my grandmother's legacy, but a chapter of my life, now closing. I had entered my marriage, believing I needed Jack to be complete. I was leaving it, knowing I had always been whole on my own. The next day, Jack signed the settlement agreement without further conditions. Rachel called with the news as I was preparing for the penthouse reveal party. "It's done," she said. "The inheritance money will be transferred tomorrow. The Portland property goes on the market next week. You're officially free." The word echoed in my mind as I dressed for the evening. Free. After nearly a year of emotional turmoil and legal battles, I was finally, completely free. The penthouse reveal was a major event in Denver's design community. Architectural photographers, industry journalists, and potential clients filled the space, admiring the innovative features and seamless integration of nature with urban living. Blake made a brief speech thanking the team, saving his highest praise for the visionary architect who transformed a blank canvas into a living work of art. When he invited me to speak, the crowd's applause was genuine and enthusiastic. As I described the design, inspiration, and process, I caught sight of Megan at the back of the room. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave a small, supportive nod before slipping away. Her presence wasn't threatening, but affirming. We had both moved beyond Jack's manipulation to reclaim our authentic selves. After the formal presentations, Blake found me on the terrace, where I was enjoying a moment of solitude amidst the celebration. "The settlement came through?" he asked, joining me at the railing. "How did you know? You look different tonight. Lighter, like you've set down a heavy burden." "It's finally over," I confirmed. "The money, the legal battle, all of it." "And how does that feel?" I considered the question seriously, like I can breathe fully for the first time in years, like the future is entirely mine to shape. Blake smiled. "That calls for a proper celebration. Would you consider that dinner invitation now? As a real date, not just friends?" Looking at him in the soft terrace lighting, I realized I was ready. Not because the divorce was final, but because I had rediscovered myself first. Any relationship now would be from a place of strength, not need. "Yes," I said simply. "I'd like that." The evening ended with promises of new beginnings. A dinner date, a feature in Architectural Digest, preliminary discussions about my own design studio within the firm. Possibilities that would have seemed impossible a year ago now lined up before me like an open road. As guests departed, Blake walked me to my car. "You did it, Frida. You rebuilt your life on your own terms." "I had help," I acknowledged. "You, Travis, Rachel, everyone who believed in me. We just provided opportunities. You did the hard work yourself." He squeezed my hand. "That's what makes your story so powerful. You didn't just survive, you thrived." Driving home, I reflected on his words. My journey hadn't been about revenge or even justice. It had been about reclamation. Of my career, my finances, my self-worth. While Jack left to find himself with someone else, I had found myself by standing alone. 1 year after Jack packed his bags to find himself with his ex, I had built a life he could never have imagined for me. A life of freedom, success, and genuine self-discovery. A life entirely my own. 1 year to the day after Jack left to find himself with Megan, I stood before a judge in Denver County Court for the final divorce decree. Rachel beside me, calm confidence replacing the anxiety that had once defined these proceedings. Jack attended with his new attorney, a less polished man who matched Jack's diminished circumstances. His marketing firm had declared bankruptcy 3 months earlier, a victim of Jack's mismanagement and damaged reputation. "The court has reviewed the settlement agreement and finds it fair and equitable," the judge announced. "The marriage of Frida Harrison and Jack Harrison is hereby dissolved." With a stroke of her pen, 8 years of marriage officially ended. Not with drama or tears, but with the quiet finality of a chapter closing. Outside the courthouse, Rachel shook my hand. "Congratulations. You got everything you deserved and more. Thank you for believing me when I barely believed myself." "That's the thing about starting over," Rachel smiled. "Sometimes it takes outside eyes to see your true worth when you've forgotten it." Returning to my office at Parker & Associates, now Harrison Design Studio within the larger firm, I found my team gathered with champagne and cupcakes. "To new beginnings," Travis toasted, handing me a glass. "And closed chapters," Zoe added, raising her own. The celebration felt right. Professional success had provided a foundation for my personal rebuilding. In the year since arriving in Denver, I had completed 8 major projects, been featured in 3 national publications, and mentored 2 young female architects who reminded me of myself a decade earlier. Later that afternoon, I received an unexpected delivery. A small box containing a brass key and a note in Jack's handwriting. "The safe deposit box at Western Union Bank. Everything I kept from you is inside. I'm truly sorry." The next morning, I visited the bank. The safe deposit box contained documents I hadn't known existed, the original business partnership agreement with my forged signature Emails between Jack and Megan dating back 3 years, financial statements showing the systematic draining of my inheritance. Most surprisingly, I found my original architecture portfolio, which Jack had claimed was lost during our move to Seattle, the one containing designs that had won collegiate awards and sparked my early career. The discovery brought not anger, but a strange sense of closure. Jack had hidden these things to diminish me, to keep me dependent and doubtful. Now they returned as confirmation of a truth I already knew. My talent and worth had never disappeared, only been temporarily obscured. That evening, Blake and I celebrated with dinner at Aspen Grove, Denver's most exclusive restaurant. After 6 months of dating, our relationship had developed into something I'd never experienced before. A partnership of equals, built on mutual respect and genuine admiration. "I have something for you," Blake said, sliding a small envelope across the table. "Not a ring," he added quickly, seeing my expression. "I know you're not ready for that, and honestly, neither am I." Inside the envelope was a deed to a small mountain property outside Denver. "It's 10 acres with a cabin that needs renovation," Blake explained. "I thought it might be your next personal project. A weekend retreat to design exactly as you want, without clients or committees." The gift was perfect. Not a sign of possession or control, but an opportunity for further creative expression. "There's one condition," Blake continued. "You have to let me visit occasionally, strictly to admire your work, of course." "I think that can be arranged," I smiled, reaching for his hand across the table. 2 weeks later, I received an email that brought my journey full circle. The Seattle firm where I had interviewed unsuccessfully before my marriage was hosting a major design competition. The invitation read, "Based on your innovative work in Denver, we would be honored to have you serve as a judge rather than a competitor." The symmetry was striking. 8 years ago, they had rejected me as not experienced enough. Now they sought me as an authority. The trip would mean returning to Seattle for the first time since my midnight escape, facing the city where my dreams had once seemed to die. "You don't have to go," Blake said when I shared the invitation. "No one would blame you for avoiding those memories." "I think I need to go," I replied, to see it through different eyes. The Seattle skyline looked smaller somehow as my plane descended. The city that had once seemed to contain my whole world now appeared as just another collection of buildings against mountains and water. My hotel overlooked Pike Place Market, deliberately chosen to avoid any places Jack and I had frequented. The competition was being held in the downtown design district, an area I had once longed to work in. Walking those streets as a judge, rather than a hopeful applicant, I felt the completion of a circle. Not a return to where I had been, but an arrival at where I was always meant to be. The second day of the competition brought another unexpected encounter. During the lunch break, Sandra, Jack's former business partner, approached my table. "I almost didn't recognize you," she said. "You look completely different." "A good, different, I hope." "Definitely. You're glowing." She hesitated. "I started my own marketing firm. Small but growing. Ethical client practices only." "Congratulations. That's wonderful. I learned a lot from watching you rebuild," Sandra admitted. "How you refused to let Jack's actions define you. It gave me courage to start over too." Her words stayed with me throughout the afternoon judging sessions. My journey hadn't just transformed my own life, but had rippled outward, affecting others in ways I never anticipated. That evening, I visited my old neighborhood. The house Jack and I had shared looked smaller, less impressive than in my memory. A young family now lived there, children's bicycles on the porch, colorful flowers in planters I had left behind. Standing across the street, I felt no longing, no regret. Just appreciation for the woman who had walked out that door, carrying only what she could fit in her car, uncertain of everything except that she deserved better. My final day in Seattle, I received a text from an unknown number. "Heard you're in town. Coffee? No pressure. Megan." We met at a quiet cafe near the water. Megan looked well, her expression open and confident. "I'm teaching again," she explained, stirring her latte. "High school English. It's what I always wanted to do before Jack convinced me to join his marketing team." "I'm glad," I said sincerely. "How much do you hear from him?" "Almost nothing now. Last I heard, he was living with his brother in Portland, looking for work." She hesitated. "Do you ever regret how things turned out? For him, I mean." I considered the question carefully. I regret that he couldn't be the person he pretended to be. But I don't regret leaving or standing up for myself. "You know," he said something before I left him, "that watching you succeed made him realize how small he'd become." I think about that sometimes. How people can choose to grow or diminish themselves. When we parted, Megan hugged me briefly. "Thank you for meeting me. It helps, somehow, to close the circle." "I know exactly what you mean," I replied. Returning to Denver felt like coming home in a way Seattle never had. My apartment, my design studio, my friends and colleagues, Blake waiting at the airport with that patient smile. All chosen consciously, all part of a life built with intention rather than inheritance or expectation. 3 weeks later, I stood on the deck of my newly renovated mountain cabin, watching the sunset paint the Colorado Rockies in shades of pink and gold. Blake worked inside, building a fire against the evening chill. The cabin renovation had become a shared project, weekends filled with paint samples and furniture restoration. Unlike my marriage, where Jack controlled the finances and major decisions, Blake and I negotiated each choice as equals, sometimes compromising, sometimes surprising each other with perfect solutions. As I gazed at the mountains, I reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. From a woman silently packing her husband's suitcase for his trip with another woman, to a nationally recognized architect with a thriving career, supportive relationship, and genuine self-knowledge. Jack had left to find himself with his high school sweetheart. I had found myself by walking away and building a new life from scratch. The irony wasn't lost on me. Blake joined me on the deck, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "Penny, for your thoughts?" "I was just thinking about what finding yourself really means," I said, leaning against him. Jack thought it was about recapturing his youth or escaping responsibility. But for me, it was about discovering my strength, my value outside of anyone else's definition. "And? What did you find?" I smiled, watching the last light fade from the mountains. Everything I needed was already there, just waiting for me to recognize it. We stood in comfortable silence as stars appeared above the peaks. The path forward wasn't perfect or guaranteed. There would be challenges, disagreements, moments of doubt. But unlike before, I now faced them with unshakable knowledge of my own worth. "Come inside," Blake said eventually. "It's getting cold." I took one last look at the vastness of the night sky. In a minute, I'm just enjoying the view. Alone on the deck, I whispered a thank you to the universe. Not for the pain or betrayal, but for the awakening they triggered. For the chance to rebuild on a foundation of self, respect, and authenticity. Jack had left to find himself with Megan. I had found myself first, and in doing so, discovered a life beyond anything I could have imagined, while waiting in the shadow of someone else's dreams. Have you ever had to completely rebuild your life after a relationship ended? I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and self-discovery in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of transformation and growth. Share this with someone who might need to be reminded of their own strength and worth. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to begin again.